Thanks so much for the hour. Joining us now, the president of the oldest and boldest, most cussed, most discussed civil rights organization, the NAACP. President Derrick Johnson is here. Derrick, good morning, man.
Good morning, Mark. How you doing today?
I'm good, my brother. Are you still in Mississippi?
I am home. I was your way on yesterday to do a show, and I came right back home.
Good. And because there was a big rally there last night, a Get Out the Vote rally with Reverend Barber, wasn't it?
There have been activities all week. There'll be some more today, and it's going to resume back on Saturday. People are gearing up to turn out the vote on Tuesday next week for the runoff election.
If every African American in Mississippi voted, I mean, we would know the outcome, obviously. But that's the challenge, as always, isn't it? Getting more African Americans in Mississippi than even in Georgia and Alabama, right?
Percentage-wise, absolutely. We have the highest percentage of African Americans, hovering around 37%, total around 33% voting age population.
If as many people showed up to vote Tuesday that show up at your annual convention, Mississippi Catfish and Blues festival, it'd be all over with.
So what you said, I need to have blues at every precinct.
That's right. I mean, because folk come out, everybody comes out for that from all over the world. So that's what we need in Mississippi. The report has come out too, that's critical, which shows the impact of black voters. You did a study along with other organizations.
So we've done, this is our second poll. This summer we did a poll talking about African American participation, the support of political parties. It was illuminating that this summer when we conducted the polls, 77% of African Americans said they were going to support for a Democratic candidate.
Right.
On election eve, that number jumped to over 90%, and that was all accounted for the tone from the White House, statements from the president, and the Republican Party in general embracing Donald Trump in his negative racial disrespected tone. So it's fascinating to see how our polling numbers move so rapidly just within a matter of months.
Yeah. And made a great deal of difference in the election. African Americans still are shaping the outcome in many of these elections, aren't we?
I think when all the final numbers are in and we're watching it, we will over-index our population and by far exceed, as we already know, any projections.
Mm-hmm.
African Americans was as enthusiastic this election cycle that we than any other time we've seen during a midterm election in the history of what we can find in terms of midterm elections. It was amazing to see the level of activity of black folks going to the polls.
And that's important and historic because not only was it precedent setting for the midterms, it probably was precedent setting for all elections because the next highest turnout would have been both elections in 2008 and 2012 of Barack Obama.
We're approaching now presidential level turnouts overall for this midterm election. We are shy of 2016 presidential elections, but once the data come in, I believe African Americans, we are rivaling presidential elections. And one of the most important election outcomes, to be clear, is what happened down in Texas, Harris County, Texas, where they completely shifted the landscape of the judiciary. There are 59 judges that sit on the bench in Harris County, Texas. That's Houston. In this one election, they pretty much removed all the incumbents, and 19 African-American women got elected as judges. It was unprecedented. And you understand the impact of this. Harris County, Texas, for many years had the highest per capita in terms of individuals serving on death row, the second highest of any other state. This county was the second highest of any other state.
Mm.
The highest was Texas.
Mm.
Harris County was the second highest.
Wow.
And so you can only imagine the impact it was going to have on the criminal justice system in that county and the system of equity for communities, Black, white, Latino, and other, in the city of Houston moving forward.
If you all are with us on Twitter, and we're streaming on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, Make It Plain, and also on Instagram, Minister with 2 T's, you can see this report on the screen that Derrick Johnson and I are referencing, and some really compelling information. This level of African American participation. There might have been an organization that appears on a weekly radio show that might have had an impact on this participation, right, Derrick? A little organization we called it NAACP, right?
Well, the organization that folks, when I first walked in, said, is it still relevant? We are as relevant as we have members on the ground who are doing the work to ensure that democracy works. The Power of Five campaign was tremendous.
Yeah.
Research showed not only did regular voters go vote, but they got many of their neighbors and their family and people that they're familiar with to go vote. Relational organizing is the most effective way to get people to the polls, and that's what we do as NAACP. That's the part of what I said was going to be most important over the next 5 years.
Yeah.
The civic engagement calendar. And so for next year, it's all about the census. We got to make sure we have accurate count for the census.
That's right. Folks, it's up on the screen right now. Non-voting political activities. Encouraged your friends or family to register or vote. 79%, what's polled, 79% of African Americans did so, versus 66% of whites. Donated money to a candidate or campaign. 26% of African Americans, 25% white. Attended a campaign rally or event. See, this is where you get in trouble now because Trump claims millions of people at my campaign rally. African Americans, 24%, whites, 13%. Volunteered for a candidate or voter outreach drive, 26% African American, 11% white. Attended a protest or demonstration, 18% African American, 8% white. So what we see on TV does not necessarily reflect the number of folk who are really engaged and what they really look like. This is amazing, Derrick.
Well, Dr. Jerry Young, who's the head of the Baptist Convention, he loves to talk about having audio and no video. Audio is when you're making a whole lot of noise. But if you ain't got no video of doing anything, it ain't nothing but noise. Right. And so going to rallies is all fine and good. It's a lot of noise. But it's the video, it's the action that matters. And what we were able to demonstrate out of the survey, that once the call to action was made from us and many other groups, from you, Mark, and from Sharpton, and from Mark, everybody was on the same script. People turned out and they participated in large numbers. And that's important. Yeah. And we must continue to push our community to be better than what we are. One of the things I've always hated to hear is what black folks can't do, won't do. Yeah. And it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Right. I had a professor at Tougaloo College say, you speak into existence what you would like to see. Mm-hmm. So we got to stop saying black folks can't run a business when you were driving past black churches that were established over 100 years ago. Running a church is a business, and it's cooperative economics. But that black folks don't work together, when all of us are a member or affiliated with some black entity, whether it's just living in a neighborhood, and it works as much as we contributed to it, or that black folks don't vote, when in fact we vote at par, and in some communities at a higher percentage than our neighbors in those same communities. We need to speak into existence what we can do. Now that we have done this, the next step is speaking into existence. What would the first 100 days of the convening of Congress look like with 5 members who are chairmen of major committees, who are CBC members? What is it going to look like in your community with the outcome of this election? Because we can't get people elected and then go sit down and say, y'all go do. We got to get people elected, and then from there make sure they represent the needs and interests of our community. Whether they come from our community or benefited from our community's vote, they still must be held accountable, and it's our responsibility to do that.
These are some fascinating polling numbers, ladies and gentlemen. And just black voting in key states, that's interesting. You can see that on the screen right now for yourselves. But also black choice in candidates in key races. The African-American vote made the difference for Beto in Texas, 86%, 10% white. Jackie Rosen in Nevada, 93% black, 3% white. And, I mean, it goes without saying Gillum and Abrams. But, you know, it shows when we look at, some people want Beto to run for president. Beto wouldn't be Beto if not for the black vote and obviously African-Americans' support of the Democratic Party. But then this is interesting, too. Here's some other interesting numbers. Emotions that Trump inspires. You all ask angry, proud, hopeful, and disrespected. Now, angry. 79% of African Americans polled say Trump makes them angry. But 57% of whites polled agree Trump makes them angry. Proud. Does Trump make you feel proud? 13% African American, 50% white, no surprise. Hopeful. 60% African American, 54% white, no surprise. But here's another surprise to go along with angry. Disrespected. 83% of African Americans feel disrespected by Trump. But it also says 47% of whites do as well. That's very interesting, Derrick.
You know, and yet they fall in line and vote for him by a majority, which is I don't understand, because here's an individual who has broken every traditional norm imaginable in the most negative, egregious way.
Right.
Whether we're talking about being a patriot, he coddles to a foreign leader who's a dictator and has been an enemy to this nation for the last 60 plus years, talking about Russia. He's able to take money from individuals and companies and not file his taxes, right, and yet claim to be a billionaire, and we have no concept what conflicts of interest he have. He's placing his family in the White House, negotiating on behalf of this nation with foreign countries, and they have no background to do every norm you can think of.
Yeah.
He just completely run over it. They say they feel disrespected, and yet they still support him. But what's most important is this one key fact. The Republican Party has yet to denounce his activity.
Yeah, right.
That's key. So now it's not about Trump. It's about an entire political party that have, by their silence and their words, condone extremely anti-American activities. That's important to recognize.
I'll be honest with you, though, some of these poll numbers among some of these whites are still optimistic to me. That means there's impact, there's a dent in that armor. That there's someone's also in this poll, a third of whites you all polled, 31%, say they believe Trump is a racist whose policies are intended to hurt African Americans and minorities. That's important. Trump impact on race and gender.
What's the number again?
It says 31%.
But I mean 69%.
Well, I know. But I mean, to get to, I'm surprised you got a third of white folks say that though. I mean, that to me, I just still would want to build on that. Folks, look at this piece, and we'll talk more about it in the weeks to come. There's so much here, I can't cover it all now. We'll talk about race and gender. Derrick, you're going to love this. They called Hillary Crooked Hillary because of her emails. And so we said we need a nickname for Ivanka now because of hers. And a listener called up and suggested the nickname for Ivanka ought to be Crooked Letter I. Thinking about Mississippi. But, if Hillary's Crooked Hillary, if she's doing emails too, maybe she ought to be Crooked Letter I. I thought that was kind of creative. I thought you would like that one.
I love that.
Derrick Johnson, folks, President and CEO of the NAACP. Great poll, folks, is in our thread. Look right down on Twitter. If you're watching this video, boom, it's right there. And you can see more. We'll talk more about gender next week when Derrick joins us. Derrick, happy Thanksgiving to you and your entire family, man, okay? Do y'all have catfish? Y'all eat catfish on Thanksgiving too?
Oh, man, I would look at my wife said she's doing gumbo, and I'm going deer hunting, so hopefully I have some deer meat.
Oh, Lord. All right. Enjoy yourself, man.
All right.
Derrick Johnson, president of NAACP. Folks, we'll be back. This is MIP.